And here we go. Welcome to the show, do 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 do. Welcome to the show, do 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 do. Welcome to the end of the world show. Sky is orange here in Toronto today. The entire day I was inside looking out, thinking, man, is the sun setting? Is the sun rising here at noon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And you look outside and no, it's overcast. And you're like, no, it's not overcast. And then you realize that, oh, it's because there's uncontrollable wildfires raging all across northern Ontario right now. I did a little lookup. Do I have the map? Do I have the map? There it is. Yes. All of these purple and the red. I love it that they've got out of control are red. So you look at all the red wildfires that are happening, and those are just out of control wildfires that are raging across Canada. You know, normal stuff. And then they have a second category for out of control wildfires that are monitored. We're monitoring them. We're just looking at them, basically being like, oh yeah, that's a wildfire. That's out of control, all right. And what's the impact? Right? The impact. Toronto turns hellish hue as Ontario wildfire smoke smothers region. Saying it's the worst air quality in the world at the moment. Which, that doesn't seem apocalyptic or ominous. Even a little tiny bit. It's that phenomenon. There has to be a word for this. We have to make up a word for this concept of like bearing witness to the apocalypse on your phone and then having that manifest in front of you, right? Like you're watching something coming through your phone and then it comes out of your phone and is now in your life and is just everywhere. I feel like we need a word like how the Germans have the word Schadenfreude for the feeling of pleasure at someone else's suffering, right? Like that we need like a specific word to describe this collective phenomenon we're all having, where we're witnessing a catastrophe happen through the news, through the media, through our phones, and then watching it manifest into our lives. Peanut Butter Beatrice, how are you? Is Canada now the hottest country in the world? I don't know about hottest country. All I know is our air quality be bad. And soon, like, these wildfires have become... It's like how the mass shootings in the United States just became like, oh yeah, that's just normal, right? That's just an everyday occurrence. We're not going to do anything about it, right? We're not going to have a conversation about it that's actually serious. We're not actually going to sit down with actual professionals and be like, hey, actual professionals, what do you think is actually the solution to these actual real problems? And even if we do sit down with those professionals, they'll just be roundly ignored, right? They'll just be roundly ignored by anybody who has any shred of capability to do anything about it. Such is the way of things here in the West. This clown shoes society, this Rick and Morty style parody society that's just steadily abandoned itself and steadily abandoned future generations to this absurdist ridiculous, it's future, I guess would be the word to use. The like in 50 years, you know how we look at the baby boomers and we're like, these baby boomers, they really messed things up. You wait. You wait. Wait until the boomers are gone and it's like the millennials are 80. And you wait for what the kids are going to say, because to me, I think the big, like, the knife in the back, like, when it was just like, hey, we got to stop building pipelines, and oh, we're kind of having conversation about building pipelines, and hey, is that still a thing? And oh yes, some people want to build pipelines, and some people are like, hey, no, we should stop building pipelines and all that, blah blah blah. Like, that was one thing, but now we're in this like data center world. We're in this world where the rich have just like slapped up a bunch of these centers all over the place, and this whole AI thing is happening. And like, that makes anything the baby boomers got up to look like child's play, look like baby's first like baby's first betrayal. We're just driving the car right into the wall, man. Like, we do not give a shit at all. Radio Halifax, good to see you. 30 degrees here in Halifax. Get ready. Get ready. Like, it's gonna get hellish. Like, I think the biggest shift that is finally going to make huge sections of the populace be like, oh, we really fucked up. Like, this is a total fuck up, is the wet bulb temperatures. When the wet bulb temperatures start happening, that's when you're going to get huge segments of the population. And that's when it's going to become, like, right now, it's still completely fine to be like a climate change denialist. Or to be like, well, we need to live in the political reality that exists today, so pipelines it is, right? Like, it's still okay to say that stuff and not be considered like an insane Nazi level threat, right? For some reason, it's totally perfectly okay to walk around and be like, climate change is a Chinese hoax, right? The president of the United States says it, so why shouldn't you? You're still considered like a normal person if you have those views. You're not considered a complete and total whack job that should be socially isolated, right? And so there's plenty of people walking around just being like, yep, reality doesn't exist. The future is just what you make of it. You are the author of your own fate. The sky is orange. And hopefully there'll come a time when, like, people will just be outside and the temperature will occur and people will just die, right? Because that's what wet bulb temperature does. You're just outside, sitting there, not doing anything, and the humidity hits a certain point, the temperature hits a certain point, and your system just says, oh, you're just dead. You just die in wet bulb temperature. It's been happening in India already. It will happen here in Canada. It will happen across the United States. I'm looking at you, Louisiana. And people will just straight up be outside, and then they will be dead. And it'll start the same way all of these crises start, with a small group of people, right? Like this parasite virus that's going around right now in the United States, where people are crapping their brains out, and everybody's like, RFK shut down the institution who's responsible for tracking these things, and now it's out of control. It's like, yep. Put the clowns in charge. Hull, XD, Conton, good to see you guys. Welcome aboard. And amidst the absolute absurdity and the ridiculous nonsense that is uh, the collapse of Western civilization, if not the survival of the human species being in doubt for the future, we have a hero. And that hero is Count Binface. I do have to say that the Count Binface story is really like, it really makes me smile. It really warms my heart. I've been saying for a couple of years now, guys, right? Vote for the guy with the boot on his head. Vote for Count Binface. For those of you who don't know, right? Nigel Farage, who's the leader of the Reform Party in UK, one of the big political forces that was responsible for Brexit, one of the big political forces that has been responsible for just the wholesale gutting of the UK generally, got into a bunch of political scandals, i.e. he was stealing money, the way that these guys are stealing money across the board. But he was doing it so egregiously and so aggressively that regular everyday voters were like, we should probably put this guy in jail for this. We should probably sue this guy for this, right? And so Nigel Farage, in his wisdom, says, you know what I'll do? I'll resign my seat in Clacton. That's where his seat is. And that'll force a by-election that I will then run in. So instead of actually, like, facing ethics commissions and being sued and going to jail the way that most of these politicians probably should, at bare minimum, go to jail, he decides to try to turn it into a let the people decide, run in a new election. And the reason why he can do this is because the way politics works is that this is all rigged, and so his seat is basically secured anyway. So he's just going to run in this by-election, turn it into political theater, say the people have spoken, and put all the scandals behind him, right? That kind of thing. Well, in a hilarious turn of events, all of his political opponents, the legitimate political opponents, sorry, I don't know why I said legitimate. There's no such thing as a legitimate political opponent anymore. All of the traditional opponents, right? So like Labour, the Tories, that kind of thing. They looked at what Farage was doing and said, yeah, we're not going to join in. We're not going to run candidates. We're not going to turn this into an actual political theater. And so what that has left Farage to run against is a fellow named Count Binface. Count Binface is what others would consider a joke candidate. The whole thing is a joke, so he's as serious as anybody else at this point. He's been running in several elections for the last couple of years. He's quite literally a man wearing, like, Darth Vader-esque armor with a bin for a head. It's actually a really well-made costume. And when polled, right, in Britain, Count Binface is actually polling ahead of Nigel Farage. Now, the polling is being done across Britain. Clacton is the only place that it actually matters. I haven't seen any polling of Clacton itself. But it's funny. It's funny that finally we are getting to the point where people are starting to say, yeah, I'll just vote for the guy with a bin for a head. Like, stop voting for Labour, the Tories, Conservatives, Liberals, NDP. Like, stop voting for these people. Stop putting your support behind these people. Stop pretending like any of these people actually give a shit about you at all, or your country, or your children, or any of that. Like, stop pretending like any of that is true, because they don't. They genuinely do not give a fuck about you at all. They pretend like they do, right? Like Doug Ford will waddle out in front of you and be like, "I'm for the people. I'm the most people forward." Like, if they can lie to you and get you to be like, "No, Doug Ford for the people," they'll do it. Turns out that like serial rapists and mass murderers and frauds and thieves are also liars. Who knew? And it's gotten so systemic. Like, the corruption is so built into the structure and the fabric of the system that the system has delegitimized itself completely. There's no such thing as a candidate that can arise from the system that has legitimacy. And so we're left in a position where the only real politics that exists any longer, and with any credibility or seriousness, is the politics that is happening on your street. Like, in so many ways, paying attention to, or giving legitimacy, paying attention is fine, but giving legitimacy or credibility to federal or state politics at this point is so clownish and ridiculous. Like, it's clearly just rich people doing what they want. And we're seeing that rich people, like the whole philosophy of neoliberalism, give all the money to a small select group of capitalists and they'll trickle it down. And it turns out that what we really handed them was the vision for the future. Like, what vision should we move forward with? And it turns out that their vision is the vision of an idiot. It's the vision of like a total moron, right? Like, their vision for the future could not be any dim-witted and stupid. Their vision for the future isn't everybody's safe and comfortable and living a good life and having an easy go of it. Their vision for the future is straight up like, I'm gonna hide in a bunker to protect myself from the coming of the Antichrist. Like, that's straight up their vision of the future. They should not have power. They should not have influence. They should have their assets stripped. They should be removed from power. Anytime because of the rise of people like Mamdani, because of the rise of leftists finally getting traction and people taking more seriously the idea that like, oh yeah, maybe one guy having $1 trillion is a bad thing. Because more and more people are willing to actually be like, yeah, it seems wrong, doesn't seem correct. You're seeing a bigger and bigger pushback from the fascists, right? Who are just flooding the zone with garbage and nonsense. And you can tell that it's nonsense because they're so belligerent. Like, they're so stupidly belligerent. The new voices that are coming out of the woodwork, they're all idiotic child men who say the stupidest things you've ever heard in your life, and we're supposed to take them seriously. Like, we're supposed to actually engage them in their stupid, dumb discourse. And repeatedly, one of my favorite things that they'll say is that classic, well, if you raise my taxes, I'll just leave. And I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the like mainstream person who gets on like the classic legacy corporate media actually say, yeah, good, get out of here, bye, farewell, I'll pack your bags. Like, I don't know why we're still treating these people as though they are decent and they have decency or dignity. Like, I don't know why we're still treating them as though they should be negotiated with. To me, that's the weirdest part of this whole thing, is that, like, we're still, for some reason, negotiating with these people. Like, we're still going on Piers Morgan and being like, now, Piers, here's the rational, logical argument for why we shouldn't rape children. And Piers Morgan's like, but we earned the rape child machine. Why do you want to punish the success of rapists? And we're all supposed to be like, that's a good point, Pierce. And it's because, like, a significant portion, like, even when it's reported that, like, Donald Trump's approval rating plunges with young voters, new poll shows, but then you dig into it and you're like, oh, key points, Trump's overall approval stands at 38%. So 38% of the society is still insane. Just like a group of lunatics basically being like, yeah, what Donald Trump's doing is completely fine. You know, I don't agree with everything he does, but Donald Trump doing a pretty good job. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. It's a tough job, you know, guys. Being the president of the United States of America is a tough job. You gotta hand it to Trump. He's getting things done. He's getting things done. 38% of the population, when polled, thinks that Trump being a fascist bully and destroying the future of America and destroying its prestige on the world stage is a grand thing. Fantastic. We being hit with the BBC filter in real life, yeah. Explosive diarrhea. That'll teach you to eat your vegetables. Nice. Matthew Bouchard, yeah. Hey, everyone, it sure is hot outside. Yep. Well, oh, snap. Something went wrong. Yeah, no kidding, something went wrong. I've noticed that the internet has become shittier and shittier, and it's just going to continue getting shittier and shittier. Hull writes, according to data, 14,000 people across Europe died from the heat so far. Yep. Just getting started, kids. Just getting started. Elaney. Canadian comedy at Trump is unironically getting things done. I mean, he is getting things done. There are things being done. That's for sure. Like, ICE agents shooting citizens in the streets and rounding people up and sending them to concentration camps is certainly a thing that's getting done. Data centers just being slapped up all across the country, sucking up all the energy and raising your energy bills and creating environmental catastrophe wherever they go. That's definitely a thing that is certainly being done. Donald Trump paying out a whole bunch of money in sex scandals and sexual sex assault allegations. That's a thing. That's definitely happening. And it's getting done. That's for sure. Like, maybe it's time we start asking questions about, like, hey, maybe the things that we want done should be not so goddamn stupid. Like, I think the stupidest story, like the number one story for me of the week, and this week was like a humdinger, right? Lindsey Graham died. And, like, Mitch McConnell is most certainly dead. And, like, they're hiding that because it's politically bad that he's dead. And there's the classic, like, AI jobs. This certainly isn't a scapegoat to shut down industries so that we can retreat to our underground bunkers and prepare for the return of the Antichrist. Or, like, we're still at war with Iran, right? Just clown shoes after clown shoes. No, I think this is the story that really encapsulates how, like, the dumb fuckery of the moment. Rubio vows to dismantle International Criminal Court. For those of you who don't know, the International Criminal Court was created during and post World War II in order to try to avoid or disincentivize, to use economics language, another world war. That the International Criminal Court was like, hey, maybe if people engage in war crimes, they should be somehow punished for that. And Rubio is basically just saying, "Nah, we can get rid of that. America first, baby. Who cares about this court that has anything to say about who and what we are?" And when like the International Criminal Court was like, Putin did a bad thing, the Americans were like, "That's right, that's goddamn right." But the minute the International Criminal Court was like, "Hey, we can't help but notice that Israel is committing a major genocide," still ongoing, by the way. Oh, and by the way, also spreading war into Lebanon and Syria, and also warring with all its neighbors. Can't help but notice it. Rubio is like, "We're going to dismantle the International Criminal Court." Like, the idea that this is a person of standing within a political party in the United States should basically be all the evidence you need to tell you that, like, oh, we're done here, right? Like, we're finished. Just pack it up. America's over. Eleni says, "Good, get rid of the ICC. They don't acknowledge the genocide in Palestine." JK, yeah. They do acknowledge the genocide of Palestine, actually. The whole, like Netanyahu is a war criminal. It's the reason why Rubio is like, where you need to dismantle the International Criminal Court, because Rubio works for Israel. Right? Israel is who's in charge in America right now. And it's staggering to like see it play out in real time like this. The idea that, like, I was always of the belief that when a politician was corrupt, they were corrupt for like huge sums, and like it was like a big deal. And like you see how much money these guys are being bought for, and it's just nothing. It's just like literally nothing. It's some of these guys are literally voting on behalf of Israel and like a genocide for like $100,000, and you're just like, yeah, politicians are bought cheap. Hull writes, and by the way, Trump's made like $2 billion since his presidency through crypto and stock. Notice how these ceasefires and their breakings have always been carried out only on weekending. Yeah. Like, to say that they're even governing at this point is just, it's the whole thing is just a big giant pump and dump scheme, isn't it? Like, the entire thing is just, how do we pump and dump this situation? And for God's sakes, it's not just Trump. Like, it's not just the Republicans. Like, Nancy Pelosi is obviously committed to doing insider trading on just like a major, massive scale. She trades on the market, at like 2 times the rate of Warren Buffett. Like, she's so obviously committed to insider trading. Nobody gives a shit, right? Nobody cares. You point it out, and people's general response is just like, "Yeah, well, what are you gonna do?" Oh, yeah, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? At what point do we just surround these people's houses and just like make permanent encampments around Mar-a-Lago? Like, at what point do we actually do that? Eleni, yeah, it took him forever though. Yeah, the wheels of justice, if you want to call what's going on justice. Ditto writes, good to see you, by the way, Ditto. The cost of corrupting a politician is commensurate with the risk. Sanctions, since there's no risk and no sanctions, they are very cheap. Well, and also, like, a lot of these politicians are just curated, right? Like, they're raised from a young age. They go through the indoctrination system. Like, it's like, we're really at a point where the biggest thing that we're confronting as like a civilization, if you want to call it that, is that we have all bought in to a religious ideology that has been masquerading as a science. Neoliberal economics is not a science. The people who are still walking around defending capitalism and defending neoliberal economics are religious acolytes and nothing else. Their theory is wrong. It doesn't work. It is a failure. The only thing that it actually achieves and does is collapses whatever system they're defending back into feudalism. That if you're genuinely standing in front of people saying, I am defending capitalism while erecting a feudal system, that's a regression, right? That's not progress. That's not forward. That's not even maintaining the status quo, right? Like, it would be one thing if they were saying, this is the system as it is, and this is what we have to deal with, and it maintained the structure of the capital system that they were defending. But that's not what's happening. That the structure of the system that they're defending is collapsed. And not collapsing. Collapsed. Like, it's already happened. We're just, like, in its wake. And nobody wants to actually report on the reality that the system has collapsed. And you have to, like, engage with baby babble, basically, at this point. Like, I just keep listening, and I keep seeing on my socials the people who are defending capitalism. And it's baby babble at this point. Just easily falsifiable baby babble where they talk to, like, teenagers and university students, and they don't actually sit down with anybody who's actually serious, or even really attempting to be serious, because if they did, the first thing that person would say to them is, what are you even talking about? Like, this is babble. Nothing you're saying relates to reality at all. Let's break apart your semantic religious arguments and face reality for a minute. I'm yet to see anybody actually look at these religious kooks in any mainstream way and just say, oh yeah, you're like religious lunatics. You're not any different than somebody being like, the end is nigh, Jesus Christ is coming back, the Antichrist is risen. You're the same. Because if you do that, apparently it's uncouth and unserious to point out that these guys are religious lunatics. Right? Like, you can't point out what is patently obvious. And they're all just, like, liars. Like, that's the best part. Is that they stand up and they say what they say, and instead of all of us just going, yeah, they're probably lying. Like, I don't know why instead of that, we all go, well, we have to really break apart their argument and go down the chain, make a... It's like, no, you don't. Like, you really don't anymore. Like, their leaders are pedophilic rapists, frauds, thieves. Chances are good they're lying. And really, that should be how we get as a people. We should literally just be like, yeah, they're lying. Story over. Like, you don't need to have a big debate about it. You don't need to have a big conversation about it. They're clearly just flooding the zone with garbage. And instead of us just staying on point and being like, yeah, we still think that food and shelter should be available to citizens. Like, we still think that every citizen should have access to food and shelter, regardless of what you say. Like, instead of that, we get caught in this game of having to, we got to talk about this point, and they said this, and we got to show that this is not. It's just like, no, you don't. Like, you really don't. Like, we really are at a point where you either believe in reality and believe that children should have food, or you think that we should put our weight behind a pedophilic rape cult that is obviously attempting to destroy everything around us. Like, those are your options, and I don't think that we should be taking what the rape cult says seriously at all. Like, I think that what we should do is look at these guys and say, yeah, we don't think any of that's accurate or true. And moreover, I don't know why we care what you think. Like, that's the big thing. It's like, hey, you guys are pedophilic rapists. I don't know why we care what you think about housing policies. Like, I don't know why we care about what you think about any kind of social issue at all. Like, you guys go to rape islands and rape children. Like, I don't see why we need to actually speak back to the stupid, ridiculous lies and the nonsense that you say. I don't know why you think we should talk to you as though you have credibility. And yet we still do. And 38% of the population is like, the rape cult is the best. We think supporting a rape cult is the way forward. Like, I don't know. I guess we just get what we deserve, you know? I guess that's just kind of what it's coming down to. It's like, we could do literally anything else. Well, how are you gonna pay for that? How are you gonna pay for that? These guys just want free stuff. That's the best. That's one that's always been around, but now they're really pounding on it. And it's like revealing that they are in a religious cult. They just want free stuff. It's like, no, babe. We just want the taxes to pay for things that help us. And it's about priorities. It's not free stuff. Like, we all understand how the tax system works. We understand how the fire department works, right? We understand that. We just think that what you're doing is something a crazy person would do. And we'd like to stop that. And maybe like, hey, why are we funding ICE? Hey, why are we funding Israel? Hey, why are we funding these absolutely insane, manic projects that are obviously something that a slaving, crazy person would do? Like, to me, that's the big story. That's the thing that future generations are going to look back on. Is like, what? Why did they do any of this? Why did they do any of that? They could have literally set up major institutions in order to just ensure every citizen has access to food and shelter and education and healthcare forever, ad nauseum, into eternity, right? And instead, they just did this. The endless war, the climate change catastrophe, the data centers. The data centers are just like the clown shoes level, dude. I know what we'll do. We'll erect a tiny electric god. Like, shut up. Just pull the plug, man. Just lay everybody off. Just throw them into the streets. And just say you're doing it because you want money. Like, just say that. At least that would be honest. This grift that they're all running on us. This AI grift. Where they're all like, oh yeah, we gotta lay off our entire workforce because AI. Yeah, because that's how productivity works. Because that's how any of this actually works. Yeah, because the thing to do when you're increasing productivity is definitely to not expand and get bigger. It's to shrink yourself back to the size that you want to be. Yeah, that's the thing that makes sense for sure. Like, it's a grift. They're using AI as a scapegoat so that they can blame it for their destroyed industries. Right? They're destroying their industries. They're committing to vulture capitalism. They're tearing everything apart, and so they can profit from it. And they're blaming AI. Right? It's the perfect scapegoat. It can't fight back. Right? You type into it like, "Are you destroying America?" and the AI would be like, "Thanks for asking." AI does have many concerns in regards to the downfall of America. Like a scapegoat that actually agrees, right? Not that we listen to scapegoats ever. Not that we're ever like, "Hey, let's hear what the scapegoat has to say. Let's hear what the minorities have to say. Let's hear what the patsy has to say." So we're just going to go along with it. We're just going to be like, "Yeah, AI. AI is the problem. We need to do something about AI." Instead of like, "Hey, did you know that there are like people who are actually doing it? Did you know that there are actually human beings who are behind that project?" And we're all just supposed to go to work, right? And we're all supposed to wake up in the morning, get cleaned up, put on our big boy pants, and go do a job where we work for these people. Like these incredulous psychopaths are standing there being like, "If you want food and shelter, you have to go to work for us," at these jobs that are pointless, for people you never meet and you don't know, to do tasks that are irrelevant, for something that's probably harmful in the end of it all. Yeah, peanut butter Beatrice. Yep, that's the spirit. I hope they retreat to their bunkers soon so we can seal them off like bugs in bottles. One of my new favorite things that's going on, I don't have the article for this, but it is striking me right at the moment, is like the meta glasses that are coming up. The meta glasses are where they're permanently taking pictures of their surroundings and recording audio. You're basically like, if you're wearing these glasses, you're basically like a little surveillance device for Facebook, right? You're just walking around being a surveillance device. Like like we're all told how we're supposed to be like afraid of China because they've got cameras everywhere. It's like, yeah, bitch, you're the camera. Like, we're making people cameras now. And these glasses are obviously like for pervs. They're obviously pervert glasses. Like, that's what they're designed to be. They're so like weirdos can record things they find attractive to jerk off to later. Like, that's what they're for. So very obviously, well, that and to erect a surveillance state. But the people who are going to be wearing these things and walking around with them and actually recording everything around them are like weird, creepy perverts. And like, if you see somebody walking around with these glasses, just know that's the creepiest weirdo you've ever seen in your life. And what I think is so like offensive about the whole thing, isn't it interesting how at no point has anybody asked for anyone's consent about taking someone's picture and posting it online? Like, the consent of doing that is assumed. It's assumed that anybody is allowed to record you take a picture of you, and do whatever they like with it. And that's fundamentally what enables all of this technology. What enables the meta glasses and what enables Facebook and what enables all of this technology is the cultural belief and the cultural understanding that you don't have the right to say no to someone taking a picture of you or filming you, right? You don't actually have that in our cultural understanding of the agreement with this technology, the person saying no to being recorded is the weirdo instead of the opposite, which is the person doing the recording, right? That you can walk around with a camera recording whoever you want on the street, and everyone's supposed to be totally chill with that, and that's completely fine. Instead of the opposite, which is, hey, why are you recording us? What? I don't consent to that. I don't consent to being recorded, and I certainly don't consent to you posting it in a public space and doing whatever you want with it. Like, we've inverted the logic of it. And these meta glasses are like the logical conclusion. They've resisted it for a long time because the meta glasses really take the mask off of the whole thing. Like, when the internet showed up and when Facebook was showed up and when all these websites showed up where it's like, yeah, take pictures of your friends and family and put them on the internet, and everybody kind of normalized it right away because of the novelty of it, because everyone was like, oh, what a novel idea. And very steadily now, I think more and more people are like, yeah, hey, wait a minute. Why are we allowing this permanent, persistent technology to surveil us constantly and upload it for anybody to see on the internet? Like, that's weird. That's a weird idea from the outset and from the beginning. And if we all stood up and said, yeah, you don't have our consent, right? We don't consent to this. And if people did that from the outset, that would be the end of Facebook. Like, that would be the end of that entire industry. Just like, yeah, you can't film random people and post it online. In fact, filming random people in the first place, forget about the posting it online, that's already pretty weird. Like, it's pretty weird that people want to do it. It's pretty weird that people do it. Nobody asks for anybody's consent, which is really weird. But, I mean, it makes sense for, like, a pedophile rape culture, right? The way that we are. And so eventually, you know, because 38% of us are out of our minds, apparently. So eventually there'll just be a whole group of people that are just going to be walking around with these meta glasses. And it'll be like how Cybertrucks showed up in the society. We'll just have Cybertrucks, and we'll look at them and be like, wow, what a goddamn loser. And they'll just be part of the little cult that's like, I'm on the inside. Elon Musk is the future. Joe Anthony, evening to you as well. Greg Plattner, of course, worth mentioning for just a brief moment. Yeah, it turns out that Blackwater Nazis are probably also rapists, right? All of these Democrats who threw their weight behind this Greg Plattner guy, or Graham Plattner, or whatever his stupid name was, now being raked over the coals. And, like, yeah, he's a Blackwater Nazi. Like, his whole sob story, or his whole like, oh, I was young and I'd made some foolish choices and I've really come around, and like, oh, it's like, okay, that's a nice, like, even if I believe you, which I don't, but even if I do, that's a nice, like, personal growth story for you, right? Like, you should take that personal growth story and go do, like, Christian testimonials and tell people how you came to Jesus with that kind of thing, right? Like you should use that as like a professional motivational speaker, that kind of thing, right? Tell people how it's like, I was in a real tough, bad place where I was a Blackwater mercenary getting Nazi tattoos while I murdered children on behalf of Israel. And now, I really took a look in the mirror and figured, that's probably a bad way to be, and really turned my life around for Jesus. If that's what you're doing, okay. I can accept the base premise that people change. That's fine, right? It doesn't mean I think that you should be the leader of anything, right? I don't think that you should have legal power. Because while I'm glad that you came around on the Nazism, while I'm super happy that you came around on, like, maybe shooting innocent people in the back while they sleep is a bad idea, it does kind of indicate poor judgment on your behalf, right? That, like, I'm happy for you, that's great, but we really need to be getting people into this position who have something called foresight, right? I don't need somebody whose hindsight is 20/20. I don't need somebody who's like, oh, I see now that getting Nazi tattoos is a bad idea. Ah, my bad, everybody, right? That's not what we really need, right? What we really need is people who are like, I had the opportunity to do some Nazism when I was young. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think that the Nazis are bad. So I think I'm not going to do that Nazism. And like, I know that I'm kind of saying that very glibly, but that's pretty much where the bar is now, isn't it? Like, that's where we've gotten as a people, where the bar is so low that it's literally like, well, did they, have they raped and murdered anybody in their past? No. Well, they might be electable. Like, it feels like it's becoming like a what's his name? The redneck sketch guys. You know what I'm talking about? Like, if you blah blah blah, you might be a redneck, right? Jeff Foxworthy. Right? It's like a Jeff Foxworthy skit or line, right? Like, if you haven't raped a child in your life, you might be electable to be the president. Right? If you've never taken bribes from a foreign nation in order to murder children, you could be the president. Like, this is how low the bar has gotten. And, I mean, in truth, the bar is completely obliterated because the entire system is so corrupted that it doesn't matter, right? There's only two types of politicians now. There are the politicians who say they want to commit genocide, and then there's the politicians who lie about it. And those are the only two politicians that exist any longer. There isn't a single politician who's actually like, yeah, no, genocide is bad and I'm serious about it. Like, we should actually stop that. Like, that doesn't exist. There's just the people who want to do it, and then the people who want to do it but lie about it. Yeah, so exactly. I was a Nazi merc rapist 6 months ago. Vote for me. I have changed my ways. Like, and the thing is that it was completely working. People had, like, bought into it. He was on the path to actually win. And then one of his victims stood up and was like, yeah, this guy raped me. Like, turns out the Blackwater Nazi is probably not a good guy. Like, and this really speaks to, like, the corrupt nature of the system, right? This is who the Democrats were supporting. This is who the Democrats were like, yeah, let's go with this guy. This is the guy. Let's go. You're telling me you can't find, like, a decent candidate? It's like this Bible story where it is like the Bible story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where Lot, who lives in the lands of Sodom and Gomorrah, gets visited by some angels. Some angels show up and they're like, hey Lot, what's up? We're gonna destroy the city straight up, but we acknowledge that you're all right and that you've got some family kicking around in that city. So we're going to give you, Lot, the opportunity to get down into that city and get your family out of there before we, rain fire from the sky on it and blow it apart. So off you go. And Lot's like, well, what a horrible situation for the city. I'd prefer that not happen. So, if I can find like 100 righteous people in the city, will you spare the city? And the angel's like, sure. And then, as the story goes, it like goes back and forth, right? For a while. And Lot is basically haggling with the angel until finally he's literally like, if I can find 5 righteous people, will you spare the city? And the angel's like, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And I just get the sense when you read this story that the angel is like, you're not going to find 5 righteous people, but like, I'm an angel. I've been sent here by, I don't know if you've heard of him, but the Lord. And we have intel. And it's kind of like gotten to that point where we're like, can we find like 5 righteous people? Can we find a righteous person, a person who's actually like, oh hey, maybe, hear me out, just a thought, just an idea, like really, just spitballing here, brainstorming, right? Don't lose your shit or get mad or start like a McCarthy style communist purge about it. But I really do think that it's probably a good idea if we build institutions to actually make sure people have access to food and shelter. I think that's probably a good idea, right? No? Oh, okay. Yeah, we were just talking anyway, right? Yeah, find me just one righteous man. Yeah. Radio Halifax writes, I ran across a lady from Vancouver on Red Note who thinks Elon is going to save humanity. Yeah, dimwits. When asked how he is going to do this, she just gets defensive and says, anyone who disagrees is the enemy. Yeah, it's a religious cult. Like, it's a religious cult at this point. Ditto writes, of this Graham Plattner story, 2 victims, but they dismissed the first one because our patriotic hero was a Republican operative. Like, I don't know. There's no difference between these parties anymore. Like, the Republicans and the Democrats are allies. They work together. Yeah, Lot went to 100 people to 5, still haven't found one righteous. Well, and then he goes into the city, and of course, as the story goes, it gets revealed pretty fast that the city has fallen. It's basically just rapists and thieves and liars. So, standard capitalist shit. And they flee. They run. And then there's the whole, like, Sarah looks back and turns into a pillar of salt, and you're like, okay, what's that about? It's kind of fucked up, but it's fine. Right? The Bible's a pretty fucked up document. Because guess what? Humanity is a fucked up place. Like, we're a fucked up people. I got talking about the Bible, and so now it's banging around. I really do wish, like, another thing that's starting to happen, and I've been seeing it. I've only been catching glimpses of it here and there. But, like, the Christian fascists and the MAGA fascists are beginning to see that we all think that they're a fucking joke, that they're enormous losers. And so they're trying to find ways to, like, how do I say this? Re-criticize? Make credible again? Make Christianity credible again? They're trying to, like, find the way to actually do that. And so you end up with these, like, clips where very, very compassionate, empathetic sounding people are, like, trying to make arguments about Christianity and all this. And they don't, like, really realize that they sound like fucking dumbasses. Because there's magic in your book, guys. Like, I really wish that we were talking about, like, you want to talk seriously about, like, Western documents. It'd be really great if we could have more serious conversations about things like the Bible, from the position that they were clearly written to be, which is like, hey, if there's magic happening, chances are good it's allegorical. Chances are good we're in the realm of symbolism. Chances are good we're having a conversation that it's like, when magic occurs, did you ever think that maybe the author is just saying, read between the lines. Read between the lines. Something else is happening. Magic is occurring. Wizardry. Read between the lines. And instead of that, everybody's just like, so there was this wizard named Jesus Christ. He was walking around in the Middle East casting spells, telling people to love each other. We don't pay attention to the love each other part unless they're white, and then they love each other, and only if you subserviate yourself to capital. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, the famous gate in a wall in the Middle East was called the Needle. And so what Jesus really was saying is that it is easy for a rich man to get into heaven, because a rich man can go through the needle. Andrew Christie over on Twitch. Hi all, I haven't visited the channel in a long time. My English is still bad. Yeah, mine too. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here for the for bearing witness to the downfall of Western civilization, if not the species. Let's all remember we're all in this together. And it's just like, Joe writes, that's just so discouraging that there seems no way to do good under this insane neo-fascist plutocracy. Like, again, I always focus on the same thing again and again, right? Which is weird because it is like a Petersonian kind of thing to say, but like focusing on federal or even state or provincial politics at this point is a complete lost cause. Like, politics is on your street. Politics is what's going on in your building. Like, politics at this point is completely local, because the systems have been so corrupted and are so irredeemable. They will collapse. They can't not collapse. They mathematically must, right? You can't save this. And the people who are in charge are not interested in building anything or maintaining anything. And we're not actually attempting to sustain anything. That the apologists who say things like, "Oh, we've never had it better," are just like, it's like celebrating how fast you're going while you burn up all your fuel. You know, like, yeah, you're going real fast right now, but you're out of fuel. What do you think's going to happen? And we're not transitioning to new fuel sources. We're not moving to a new way of doing business. That's going to be so funny to see happen, dude. Oh, it's going to be so funny. Like, you want to see how China takes over the world is 100% because there is a major fuel crisis coming. In that, hey, did you know, guys? Did you know that oil is a non-renewable resource? Did you know that? That we only have so much of it? And yet we've got a lot of it. Like, we've got millions and millions of barrels of oil. Right? We fracked America. We blew up any place where there's like actual clean water or anything. We got to blow the shit out of that to squeeze a drop of oil out of it. Right? We've got to make sure that we keep the wars going because that keeps the price of oil high, so it remains viable. And meanwhile, China's just like, no, we're going to make some more solar panels. We're going to invent new ways to take advantage of the ocean tides. We're gonna make new ways to do wind energy, right? We're going to geothermal. Hey, we've got like quantum fusion reactors and shit like that going on now. And so, because here in the West, we are doing fucking nothing, right? Fucking nothing. Because we're doing effing nothing at all, when we run out of the oil, when we run out of the fuel, we're going to have to buy everything from China. Because they're the ones making it. Wonka, wonk, 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 wonk. A fellow by the name of Y. Paul, over on YouTube here. I think you're a first-time commenter. Glad to see you. Hope you're here to be beautiful. Writes, I'm eating a delicious dinner right now. Is it thanks to capitalism? No, it's thanks to labor. Right? That the food that's on your plate is there because people worked to put it there. And those people are in a worse position than they would otherwise be because there are parasites called capitalists extracting surplus value and extracting wealth from those people who actually were responsible for putting food on your table. Right? That's the whole thing. That's why I hate the like, oh, you're complaining about capitalism, but the computer that you're talking on was created by capitalism. It's like, no, it wasn't. It was created by workers. It was created by laborers. That the people at the top of the hierarchy that exists extract value and surplus from those workers in order to, fund Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island and fund a genocide in Israel. And the workers don't really get a say in how things are done, right? So when the capitalists finally get together and are like, hey, we're putting too much, we're spending too much on having people see if we're putting sawdust in the food. We should get rid of those people. We should get rid of regulation and oversight, right? Why Paul says, behind this plate, there are many ingredients that came from those profit-hungry industries that bought their inputs from large farms. Yeah. And? Like, again, the point is not, like, there are farmers, and there are factories, and the factories process the food and get it to you. Yeah? That would be true no matter what system existed. That would be true if we lived in a slave system. That would be true if we lived in a feudal system. When we talk about capitalism, we're talking about the profiteers, right? The parasites at the top who extract surplus value from a system that must exist, right? And we say, is it good that we have a small group of owners extracting value from the society, weakening the society overall so that they can go buy an island and populate it with children they rape? So, Paul, I think I'm really at a point now where I get to say, you are intentionally missing the point on purpose. Like, I really, really get to say that now. That you are intentionally on purpose missing the point and you are not actually listening to what's being said. That you're doing a thing that happens a lot on this channel where you're coming in and lecturing about a subject that you don't know anything about. Right? Like, you think you're an expert and you're not. And it's pretty obvious. Right? And I see that happen a lot on this channel. And I say the same thing over and over again. And sometimes people figure it out and they're like, oh, okay, and they pivot. Right? Maybe start asking questions. Right? Maybe instead of going into a lecture about a subject that you are clearly illiterate about, like, and I'm not trying to insult you with that statement, I'm just telling you, you don't know what you're talking about, very obviously. Maybe instead, display some curiosity, ask some questions, try to figure out what's going on. Because the statements that you're making in defense of capitalism make it pretty clear that you don't really know what capitalism is. You clearly will not know what communism is. You seem to think that capitalism is thing got made. Paul says, you want questions. What moves the world today is profit. I explained it. I mean, you would be wrong. Like, the profit motive, the financial theory of economics, neoliberal economics, right, is an economic theory that gained traction and popularity through the late 70s to the modern era, and it's failing, right? Just, if I wanted to be kind to neoliberal capitalists and neoliberal economists, I would say, yeah, you guys had a theory of economics, a scientific theory that ended up not being actually rooted in the science, right? If you actually read Wealth of Nations, if you actually read Adam Smith, you find out that pretty much everything that neoliberal capitalists say about him is an inversion. Like, the whole invisible hand of the free market argument is actually the opposite of what Adam Smith argued. Like, neoliberal economists say the invisible hand of the market will take care of everything for the benefit of all. And you read Smith, and Smith was like, yeah, if you unleash capitalism onto a society, it will be as though an invisible hand comes and destroys everything. So the inversion of the scientific reality of things is getting more and more obvious. And it's getting more and more obvious because of the rise of China. China operates on a different economic theory. The economic theory that China operates from is that the means of production is the center of power, right? Here in the West, we've been operating in like the post-World War II environment. We've been operating on the economic theory that finance is the center of power. Profit. Just follow the money, right? Whatever makes somebody money. If it makes somebody money, it'll be good. Well, what we find more and more and more is that if you just follow the money, you can end up going down all kinds of absurdist, ridiculous, wasteful rabbit holes that help no one, are harmful, and the solution that Westerners come up with over and over again is, we just need to regulate, which is hilarious to say because the capitalists own the system of regulation, right? So the question here in the West consistently becomes, how much sawdust can we put in this product before it's no longer the product that we sell? Like, that ice cream sandwich you're buying, how much filler can we put into it before it's no longer an ice cream sandwich? How much canola oil can we put in the batch before we can no longer legally call it chocolate, right? And this system of competitive finance that exists in the West is reaching its terminus. It's reaching its end because of a fatal flaw in the idea of neoliberal economics, which is, if the purpose of making money, if the purpose of investing, rather, if the purpose of investing is to make money, why would anyone invest if they already have all the money? This is a critical and crucial flaw in the economic thinking that dismantles Western economics, neoliberal economics. Oh, just embarrassing, Paul. Sorry, just embarrassing. Millet is fixing his country with neoliberalism. Yeah, I mean, unless you count the well-being of the populace. The country literally exists on American subsidies. Like, that's literally how Millet is doing anything, is that the West is subsidizing his nation. Like, it's always funny how it's like hard-nosed, rugged capitalism for poor people. But if you're rich, then you can just take taxpayer subsidies, and that's considered normal business. Andrew writes, your English is excellent. Well, that's kind of you to say, thank you. Andrew writes, perceptions of evil have changed significantly. I don't want to be merely a consumer. Yeah, I mean, perceptions of evil have changed significantly. The worship of greed, right? That if somebody is greedy, they can, we're supposed to venerate them. Like, Elon Musk having $1 trillion is disgusting. Like, that's a disgraceful thing for him to stand up and brag about that in front of all of us while there are, like, hungry children. And instead of castigating him, huge sections of the population are like, wow, I can't wait to be a greedy psychopath like him one day. Cody Spinelli. Cody Spinelli. Good to see you, my man. Willful ignorance at its best. No, I mean, I do think that it's important to remember that, like, the propaganda system of capital is um, robust. It's very robust. And it's a very entrenched system of thought, right? Like, your entire quote-unquote education system, the indoctrination system that exists here in the West, is inherently pro-capital. And you never really have a serious conversation about, like, what's the system even look like, right? That the capitalists literally argue that capitalism is an inherent human system. That if you attempt to deviate away from capitalism, that will always lead to disaster, which the capitalists inherently create. But, and it's an argument that's not much different than the divine right of kings. That this is the inherent God-given system, and any deviation from it will lead to disaster. And so that's essentially what people are raised in. And so when you encounter somebody who fundamentally rejects the concept of capital, the initial position is confusion. Because the truth is that those who are raised in the system of propaganda... Oh, okay, bye, Paul. No Nazis in the chat, okay? No Nazis in the chat. And if you don't think supporting Trump makes you a Nazi, then you're a stupid Nazi. Bye, dumbass. Fiddle Ford writes, solidarity. I studied earlier today. Have an hour before my meeting. Fantastic. Subscribe maybe. Fortnite V-Bucks are worth 10 times more than the Argentinian peso right now. Yeah. Like, if you're too stupid to realize that you're getting screwed over by Trump, like, you're too stupid to talk to, man. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm not sorry at all. Like, I'm not sorry even a little bit. Like, you've been conned. It's obvious that you've been conned. A baby could figure out that they're being conned. And you're like, Trump is the king. You're a Nazi. Get out of here. Yep. Joe, who hires mercenaries to keep their system in place? Do you really need this explained to you at this point, Paul? No, I mean, there just comes a point where, like, Paul is a beneficiary of the system of fascism that has taken over America. That's it. He's a Nazi. Right? Like, we don't need to have a big debate about it. It's likely that Paul is like, what? I'm not a Nazi. He's just calling everything he doesn't like Nazism because Paul is clueless. Right? He doesn't actually know what's going on in the world around him. Right? He has no self-awareness. He doesn't actually care about what's right. He doesn't actually care about what the truth of a situation actually is. Right? Because he gets his snackies. He gets to sit there and eat his food and be like, people made this and that's capitalism, and he doesn't give a fuck. Right? The life that he has is the life that he wants, and he has no perception of it beyond himself. Which, again, is an entrenched part of the religious doctrine, right? Hyper-individualism. Care only about yourself. Right? And this is the big reason why these guys, I think, like Trump in the end. Because Trump is like, care only about yourself. And that's as far as they think. They don't think about anything else. They're selfish, belligerent children. Pretty straightforwardly. And there's just, like, no debating them anymore. Like, there's no... You can't reason with these people. Right? Like, you see how initially I was like, oh, okay, like, maybe this guy's coming in and he's interested about what I'm talking about, and so let's have the conversation. And, like, it starts to get clear that he's kind of one of these belligerent guys, and he just makes clear that he's not interested in reason. Right? Like, once they make it clear to you that they're not interested in reason, and they're not interested in rational arguments, and they're not interested in that they're just interested in their kooky little religion, bye. I'm not interested in debating your stupid, ridiculous little religion. Get out of here. It's like if a Christian fundamentalist tried to debate about the existence of climate change. I just don't care. Like, I just don't care what they think. I don't care what they say. Like, it doesn't matter. Because you're just talking to an irrational nut job, basically, at that point. And you're wasting your time. You're wasting your breath. Like, the thing to say to them is, you're wrong. You don't have any evidence for your claims. Like, yeah, slave owners are going to defend the system of slavery. Right? Like, the people who are benefiting from the system of capital are going to defend the system of capital. And they're not going to use rational arguments. They're not going to use reason. Right? They don't. They don't actually use rational arguments, and they don't actually use reason. Right? It's all just made up bullshit, lies, and myths that they tell themselves. Millie is helping Argentina. This is a real thing that's actually happening. Content writes, just put Paul on a planet of nothing but capitalist investors and landlords and put us all on a planet of workers, see what happens. Yeah. No, I just like, we're living in an environment where reality doesn't count. Where the people who have all the wealth don't actually care about the reality of what's going on for the most people. Yep. How much crap can we make them consume before millions start dying? Yeah, when that starts happening, they're just gonna bounce into their bunkers, right? Like, that's their strategy. It's the reason why they built them. And we're all just like pretending like it's not happening. Still going to work. Always astounding. Always astounding. It feels like the entire, like, your whole city is going to have to be on fire. And people will still be like, you're coming into work though, right? Like, the wage they pay you won't buy food or shelter anymore. And they'll still be like, but you're coming to work, right? And a huge segment of the population, like almost 40%, are like, this is good, actually. This is a good thing that's actually happening. And I mean, I don't know. It just comes to a point where it's like, we deserve this. Like, we totally deserve it. The West deserves this massive humiliation that's coming for it. And I think that's really what drives the delusion more than anything. Is, like, these guys know that they're losers, right? Like, when we make media about slavery and about feudalism and about the past generally, like, landlords and, like, feudal kings and rulers don't come out looking good, right? They don't come out of these stories looking like, smelling like roses, right? And unless you're watching like a straight up propaganda film, which there's plenty of those. But for the most part, like, Robin Hood is a good example. Like, we hate these guys. We generally think that the landholders of the past were total fucking losers. And those are the stories that we tell. And so today's landholders intrinsically understand that. That they work really hard to try to convince us of their value and their superiority. But in the end, history will look at them and be like, so these losers were bequeathed this land, And they used their assets to leverage to get more assets, and their wealth grew over time because that's how the system is structured to operate. That if you start the game with a bunch of land, you can leverage that land to get more land, and you can just get more assets over time. Until finally you have this empire of wealth that you've built, and guess what you do? You give it to your son. Right? And there's just like your feudal empire that gets built over time. And that's structurally how the system is designed. It's structurally designed to operate that way. And anytime the landholders and the landlords encounter any kind of negative thing, they just bribe an official and get some kind of kickback, so they don't actually lose any wealth at all over time. Andrew writes, capitalism is a systemic machine for destroying society and nature, where every action is motivated by egoism, and destruction is not a side effect, but a necessary condition for the survival of the system itself. Wow. That's like some like crystalline clarity right there. Very straightforward. Yeah, I like that. It's like the people who say, well, if capitalism is so bad, why are people trying to get here? Like, why aren't people fleeing to go to other nations? And you're like, because we're not bombing ourselves, right? Like, yeah, I bet people are fleeing from Venezuela. Like, I bet people are fleeing from the Middle East. Like, I bet people are fleeing from, like, Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and Iran. Like, I bet people are fleeing from, like, Algeria and Mali. Like, I bet people are fleeing from Myanmar. I bet they are, right? And where are they trying to go? Anywhere they're not being bombed, right? Anywhere where their leadership and their society is not being put into an existential crisis constantly. And where does that happen to be? Oh, the capitalist nations. And what do the capitalists do when you flee into their nations? Well, first of all, they exploit your desperation, right? And they force you and funnel you into low-wage jobs that nobody wants to take, and they drive wages down with it, right? That's what Canada did with its temporary foreign worker program. That's what it's still doing. It's a slave system. That's who we are. And it also has a secondary benefit, right? Because Westerners are so racist, we get to use these immigrants as scapegoats for all of our problems. So we don't actually have to solve any problems or say to capitalists, hey, you should pay more. Like, we should solve some of these problems. No, we just need to point at the immigrants who flee into our nation from the bombing campaigns that we commit against them and say they're the problem. So it's a real it's a real brilliant system, really. Kairos Rev. I can't remember if I've ever seen you here before, bud. Good to see you. I know that you're not a first-time commenter because Twitch wasn't like first-time commenter like it usually is. You comment, for the places that aren't being bombed, they are being lied to about the West. Yeah, sold a fairy tale, for sure. No, it's what America would call public relations. It's a public relations campaign, is what it is. I think the big one that I see all the time here in Canada is we sell the idea of a prosperous future for people. And I've talked to so many immigrants who say the same thing over and over again, which is like, Canada's a beautiful place, right? Forests, like its landscape is beautiful. It's relatively, like compared to like a desert, it's got a good climate. Harsh winters, obviously, but the it's the classic grift, right? That, oh yeah, I came here because like they said the wages were higher. Yep, and so is the rent, and so is the food, right? And so you spend a lot of money relocating here to Canada, only to realize that you're not making any more money because we take it from you. We've essentially built a company town nation. That's essentially how our nations are being built. That the grift from the company towns back in the 1800s was that they would advertise all across Europe. They would advertise high wages. Come work in the mines of Virginia. Come do some mining. Here's the wage, right? And the wage was high. And so people were like, "Oh boy, howdy! Look at that high wage. Let's get going. Let's we got nothing going on here in Europe because Europe is dominated by monarchs and shitty capitalists and factory slaves, factory slavers. So let's take our chances and go to the new world and explore a new opportunity, right? Let's take a swing at this." And they would go to Virginia, to the coal mines, and sure as shooting, they would get paid that wage. That's absolutely what would happen. But the people who owned the mine also owned the housing and also owned the stores, right? Because they would have a company town. And lo and behold, the rent and the price of goods was always higher than the wage. So the company owner, right, the slavers, the wage slavers, would pay a wage, and then the slaves who they captured would give them all of their wages back to get access to food and shelter. And of course, the price of food and shelter was more than the wage, so people were constantly in this state of plunging themselves further and further into debt while working in these coal mines. That's the strategy for the nation. That's the Western strategy, is to make sure that your cost of living is always higher than the wage that you get, so that you're always plunging yourself further and further into debt while working harder and harder for a system that's actively working to betray you. That's the structure of the system. And while that's happening, the beneficiaries, like Nazis like Paul, come in and celebrate it. And we're all supposed to be like, this is a respectable thing, that we should treat these people with dignity and respect, and certainly not ridicule and mock them openly. Kiros writes, I've come across Russians that literally think there are no unhoused people in America, for example, and that everyone's handed free food. Also to gentrify areas to buy them out for real estate speculation. Yeah, dude. Like, it reminds me of, like, An American Tale, Fievel Goes West. That's a pretty niche movie. It's a Don Bluth film. And there's this song. Like, the whole... It's essentially a story of people immigrating to America told through mice, basically. And the mice in Europe are all plagued by cats, right? And the cats, guess what, are the owners, the bankers and the speculators and the landlords, right? And the politicians. And there's this song that the mice sing called There Are No Cats in America. Because there are no cats in America, and the streets are paved with cheese. It's this very, like, boisterous, bouncing song where the mice are very clearly lying to themselves and very clearly propagandized in order to sell everything they have in Europe and go to America because there are no cats in America. And guess what? Guess what they find when they get to America? They find that the whole thing has been taken over by, guess who? Cats. Fiddleford writes, Russians still believe that? Parenti would talk about that misbelief. Yeah, I mean, I think that it does pay to remember, like, people don't have systemic analysis, right? People don't have, and like, because we're so overwhelmingly bombarded with propaganda, because the zone is so heavily flooded, it becomes very difficult to discern between what is real and what is fake, right? It becomes very, very difficult. And there's that phenomenon of the grass is always greener on the other side, right? There's all of that kind of stuff. Like, the Red Note moment that happened between American and Chinese citizens. I still think that's probably one of the largest cultural moments that happened for both countries. For those of you who don't know, there was this moment when they were like, we're going to shut TikTok down, right? And they were talking seriously about that. And so because of that, a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of Americans rather, moved off of TikTok and went to another Chinese app called Red Note, so named after Mao Zedong's Little Red Book, right? And it's very just similar to TikTok in many ways. But what it did is it created a kind of cultural interchange that it would be very difficult to plan. Right? It'd be very difficult to create a cultural interchange on this scale intentionally. And so you had a situation where just a bunch of Americans were just talking to a bunch of Chinese people. And just like regular folk, right? Not propagandists, not paid agents, just literally Chinese folk talking to Americans and Americans talking to Chinese folk. And they started asking each other questions. And the big takeaway from this was that these Americans went, oh my God, our government and our media system is lying to us about China. And for the Chinese, the big takeaway was, oh my God, the Chinese Communist Party is telling the truth about America. Americans have to pay for ambulances. There's such a thing as medical debt. People can go bankrupt because they have like a heart condition. And so there's this moment in China where a bunch of people are like, oh, we assumed that the Chinese were lying to us. We assumed that the things that the Americans, that we assumed that the CCP was lying to us. We assumed that they were telling stories about America in order to sort of, you know, do propaganda against America and say, look at the evils of capitalism, you should trust us instead, right? And we were skeptical. But now we're seeing that it's true. We're seeing how you have all this homelessness. We're seeing how you have to pay for your health care. What are you talking about? Or pay for your health care to a degree where it bankrupts you. Like medical debt, like your country has fallen. Like you have medical, like the idea that there is such a thing as medical debt. What are you talking about? It's like so obviously exploitative, so obviously exploiting you. Because there are no cats in America. America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Never seen a more cowardly group of people. Yes, Mr. Elon Musk. Yes, whatever you say. Yes, of course. No, of course. Of course you shouldn't pay any more taxes, Mr. Musk. Of course. Of course we'll bail you out again, Mr. Musk. Of course. Of course. Of course, Mr. Musk. Never seen a more subservient group of losers. Like, I don't know where this land of the brave shit comes from. Brave at what? Like bombing school children? Does that make you brave? Like what makes America so brave? Like where's the bravery? The 90s and 2000s were very liberal times in China. Yeah, like that makes sense. Like they opened up their economy to the West in order to prevent war with the West. And it must have been a very exciting time for China. Like just the growth. Like just seeing how much shit happened. Like this is something I think Westerners don't really get a hold of because we build nothing, because we expect catastrophe and decay, because the only thing we build is like bullshit projects like data centers and just moronic bullshit. Like the big thing that we built over the neoliberal period was a warehouse full of trash. That's our big success. Like we got really good at building warehouses and shoving them full of garbage, essentially. And meanwhile, China is like building entire cities out of whole cloth. They're literally just like, oh, there's nothing over there. Let's build a city there. And then they did. Oh, hey, you know what would be really useful? It'd be really useful if we built a high-speed rail system. Yeah, let's build 200,000 kilometers of it in 20 years. Like, that's very exciting. It's very, very exciting. I really understand how a people who are experiencing that kind of change in their material conditions, how that would liberalize them culturally. You'd begin to get lots of people beginning to say, like, well, if we're experiencing this amount of material change, what else changes? The shift back to kind of cultural conservatism, I think, is going to happen in China for sure. Like, for sure that's going to happen. You're going to see that rise of Confucianism. You're going to see the kind of the Hawks will take over again. Andrew and Kairos having a good conversation about the propaganda that exists. I mean, until the Trump administration, the Americans did have like a really strong and robust propaganda system. Like the radio free systems that existed, as you have written here, USAID, right? It's a massive propaganda network that exists. Like, for a long time, and even right now, like, the system of propaganda is so huge that people can't even really acknowledge it exists. Like, that's how big it is. It's so massive that people can't understand it. Eggs writes, no, when I meant liberal, I meant they were more pro-West. Yeah. 90s and 2000s were seen as shit years in China, not as developed as today, whereas the West is the shining golden house on the hill. I do wonder. Like, one of the things I really respect China for is that it seems like it's not falling for the same kind of, like, supremacist trap. That to me seems to be what its saving grace is going to be. That the American idea was always, I've said this before, but it's always been, we're the greatest country in the world, so you should be like us. Whereas China's position seems to be, no, we're the greatest country in the world, so buzz off. We don't really need to spread our ideology or our doctrine around. And I mean, we're just going to govern through, we're just going to show people, yeah, you can do things differently. To me, I think the criticism I see emerging, the legitimate criticism I see emerging of China, is that capitalism is a cultural force first. That it's, if you pay attention to capitalism as an economic system, right, and you analyze it as an economic system, you see very clearly why it's harmful. Right, you have a parasite class that doesn't actually do anything, that tries to take your nation over. Right, the parasite takes the nation over, and then everything gets done out of the interest of the parasite, and the parasite is the stupidest person who exists. Right, like Elon Musk's vision of the future is the vision of a baby man. Like, it's something that a 5-year-old boy would be like, yeah, we're going to go to Mars. And, like, you sit down and actually, like, think about it. You're like, dude, we don't even have, like, a moon base. Like, we don't have, like, we don't have the infrastructure for this. Like, maybe you're biting off a little bit more than you can chew. We're going to get to Mars in 15 years. Like, shut up. No, we're not. Like, no, we're fucking not. It's such a stupid thing to think. That if your goal is to, like, terraform Mars to the point where we can live on it, maybe we should start with some terraforming projects here on Earth. Maybe we should see if we can actually just sustain an ecosystem here first. Because it's not clear that we can. Right? It's not clear that humanity has the capacity to actually sustain a life system. That right now we're acting like a bunch of parasites. That we get spawned from a life system, which is the planet. Like, did you know that the planet made us? Did you know that we came from the planet? Not the other way around? Like, that this isn't a dead system where we just get to extract as much resources as we want from it with no consequence? Were you aware that this is like a life cycle? And that there is like a cycle of life that we need to sustain? Did you know that? And if we don't sustain life on this planet, then we are parasites killing our host? Did you know that? And we're not capable. There's like no evidence to show that we're capable, that Westerners at least are capable of living sustainably in our environment. We operate very much like parasites, and you're trying to pitch at us the idea that we're going to go to another planet and successfully terraform it to successfully live on a sustainable ecosystem on some dead rock floating in space. It blows me. Like, this example alone should be enough to tell you we cannot listen to these guys anymore. Like, they are entranced by their own, like, narcissism and their own hubris. Like, they actually think that shit's happening, and it's not. People are starting to glom on. Like, SpaceX stock is starting to drop. People are starting to put together that, like, the whole thing was just a fucking grift. It's starting to happen, but it's happening way too slowly. It's just happening way, way too slowly. And the consequences of it is that small groups of people have just extracted all the wealth into their own pockets and created like a small cabal. Like Peter Thiel had like a list of people, and that list is essentially like the ruling class of feudal America. That the electoral system, like the system of like states and federation and the Constitution and all of this, like that's just an old dying edifice that no longer has credibility. The ruling class doesn't really care about any of that anymore. They don't operate under that jurisdiction. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the electoral system, right? They operate within it out of convenience and nothing else. But a time will come, and it's coming sooner and sooner and sooner and faster and faster and faster, where like the Jeff Bezoses and the Peter Thiels, where these guys will basically say, this system has become too cumbersome. We no longer really wish to oblige or pay attention to it, and so we won't. Like, then what? Right? Like, and if Peter Thiel and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have their own like standing militias and own their own like cities and have like cop cities under their control, what are you going to do? Hey, we're raising your taxes 5%. Yeah, I'm not going to pay that. Well, what are you going to do? So it's all we're watching now is just a group of feudal lords, essentially, harvesting the corpse. That's all it is. Like it's not really politics, right? Like we're not actually seeing real politics in America. We're seeing lords kind of manipulate a populace so that populace doesn't do the one thing that the populace needs to actually do, which is go to their houses and surround their properties. Like, we really are, and I've been saying it for years, and you guys have heard me say it over and over again. Like, I came to understand this over the COVID years. The only thing that these people will respond to is if millions of people, and it's going to take millions of people at this point, surround their houses. Like, Elon Musk's house will need to be surrounded. Peter Thiel's bunker, right? Zuckerberg's bunker, like all of these guys' properties are going to need to be surrounded permanently by dedicated revolutionaries in order to have the needle even move at this point. And because the society is like full-blown Nazi fascism, I said it last cast, and I think it's absolutely true, that if America was the size of Israel, it would look exactly the same. That the powerful are doing everything they can to compensate for the size differential, right? That they can't just create like a big giant border wall around Gaza the way the Israelis did, because it's too big. It's just too much size. There's too much geography. But they're doing everything they can to compensate for it. They're doing everything they can to make up for it. And that's really the future that we're heading into. And there's no, like, there really is no stopping it at this point. Because the one thing that would actually slow it down, and the one thing that would actually pump the brakes, is the one thing that everyone seems to agree is uncouth. You can't do that, right? That it seems to be only people on the right, your convoy people, your January 6th people, who have the gumption, I guess, to even try, even as disorganized as it is. And those people are easily bought off and easily co-opted into the system or easily placated or rebuffed. Right? The thing that needs to be done is for millions of people to shut down bridges, to shut down the railways, to shut down the major transport routes, and to surround these people's houses. Like that's all that's left. Like we're really at a point now where even like strikes are not going to get it done. Like go on strike, it's fine. They're running everything via robotics anyway. Like they don't give a fuck about you at all, and they'll just bring in scabs, right? Or they'll just bring in temporary foreign workers, right? Just flood the place with low wage slave labor, right? Why do you think that they flooded Canada with all of these temporary foreign workers, right? To prevent strike action and to prevent the mobilization of workers. And they're just going to keep doing that kind of stuff. And it's not going to stop until millions of people are surrounding their homes and their workplaces. And that's all that's left. And that's just not happening. Because Westerners are so gulled and so stupefied and so just flabby and lazy, right? But they're not going to do any of that. It's not going to happen. And so the rise of this feudal system, right, the collapse of the capitalist system is going at full bore. Like it's Lord Teal, it's Lord Bezos, it's Lord Zuckerberg. Right? These people are lords now. We're not dealing with entrepreneurs. What a fucking joke that is. We're dealing with a feudal system and nothing else. And it's hardly surprising that the entire rest of the world is looking at this feudal structure that's arisen in the West and going, oh yeah, we did that for 1,000 years. Maybe not. I think a regression back to feudalism is not where we would like to go. What alternative is there? And they're seeing that there are alternatives. Because guess what? There are alternatives. It's just... I gotta tell you, I think the funniest thing that I see in the conversation, in the ongoing conversation of all of this, I think the funniest thing is how we can all agree that our leaders are like pedophilic rapists. But the minute they start talking about socialism and communism, they're straight shooters telling the truth about everything. That we're supposed to believe everything they have to say. I love that. I love that we can all be like, yep, they're self-interested, duplicitous liars committing a genocide. But when they talk about communism, boy howdy are they nailing it. Boy are they getting it right on the nose. And it makes it tough for me to want to participate. Like, I'm in a position now, I just finished my Teach English as a Second Language certification. And I'm in a position where I have to, like, look around for jobs. And I just find myself being completely demotivated about it. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate in this. I mean, is it a society even? Like, is it a culture? Like, what is it? What is this thing that we're pretending we're building? Like, what's this thing that we're doing? It just seems like it's a bunch of frantic little monkeys squabbling about basic resources. Like, we're really actually having a conversation about whether people should have access to shelter? What's wrong with us? Like, what's actually wrong with us? Where we're having a conversation about food and shelter. What the fuck are you talking about? And the apologists for this will say things like, hey, other people are putting labor in and you want to get access to their labor for free, and that's wrong. And it's like, no, dingleberry. We don't want access to their labor for free. Like, do you know how a fire department works? That, but for food. Do you know how a library works? That, but for food. Like, do you know how the police force works? That, but for shelter. Like, it's crazy that these guys, like, there are operating systems within the society that we all acknowledge should exist in the capacity that they exist in. Nobody is arguing for a privatized fire department. But you can't do it the other way. You can't be like, hey, this fire department model we've got going on here, maybe we should do that for our food. No, can't be done. Can't be done. Andrew writes, it's sad to see how many people consume propaganda, specifically Russian language video content. In some videos, the authors do not even hesitate to mention USAGM, U.S. Agency for Global Media, and USAID, United States Agency for International Development, in the description. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big successes that the CIA had was that it just started doing its regime change operations in the open, right? It just stopped pretending to be clandestine about it at all. And it just started organizing, it just started having organizations that would just do it out in the open. And people were fine with it. Like, that's such a wild transition. Like, when they started this process of regime change operations, they assumed that the American public would be like, boo, don't do that. But now they're like, oh, we can, like, do this right out in the open, and even the nations that we're doing it to will have enough support for us doing it that they'll celebrate it. You know, as long as we keep funding the Nazis, as long as we keep funding far-right radicals, and pretending like they're not far-right radicals when we do it. They're freedom fighters. They're fighting for the freedom to own slaves. And, like, I just don't want to participate in it. But not participating in it means that you are poor. And that's really the truth. Like, you don't want to participate in this lunatic culture that's destroying itself, then you're just going to be poor. And it means that you don't have access to just, like, basic social shit. Like, I can't go out on a date. Right? Like, I can't just, like, date someone. Because I'm poor. We live in a society that values wealth accumulation above all else. Right? You're valued based on your ability to quote-unquote provide, which, near as I can tell, is your ability to exploit others for profit. Like, if you can con a bunch of people to do your work for you, oh boy, is that desirable to Westerners. Boy, wow, look at that guy. He really knows how to uh, 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 get as much wealth as possible for himself at the expense of everyone around him. What a man's man. JT, good to see you. One of my clients tomorrow, she has late stage Parkinson's. And like, it's late stage. And so she's decided to go through with the medical assisted in dying program, the MAID program. She's doing it tomorrow. She is now the second person who I've known to go through the MAID program. And all I really did for her is showed up and spent an hour a week with her. Read some stories, talked to her. It got difficult to talk to her at the end. She wasn't really able to. And like one of the things people don't know about Parkinson's, like people assume that it is exclusively like a muscle thing, right? But it isn't. Like it's a brain thing too. That the the degenerative quality of it starts to affect your brain, and you start to hallucinate, and you start to um, get symptoms that are similar to Alzheimer's, and you can't. And so she would always struggle to remember who I was. It wasn't like that the last time I saw her, which was the last time I'll see her, which was yesterday, in fact. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we got to say goodbye. And that to me is work that has value, you know? Like, I think it's valuable to work with the dying because that's just a universal truism. We never see it. Like, people don't really want to talk about it, even though it's around us all the time and we deal with it. And that to me is important work. To get on with the task of dying. It's one of the reasons why I say the hardest thing for a person to do is to deal with themselves. Because we are. Like, we're beams of light in a meat shell that's decaying. And you can take care of the meat shell as much as you want, but it'll go. And the beam of light just goes back to the source, which is great. I'm quite looking forward to it myself. This experience of life is a double-edged sword. That we get to see it, and we get to be here, and we get to observe it, and we get to talk about it. And we get to discuss and maybe even build institutions that persist through time. Maybe we do get to do that kind of stuff. And we all just happen to be here in this moment where we get to see a capitalist empire in true decline. That the European capitalists spread their ideology through the world, committed a mass genocide on North America and South America, and a slave campaign against Africa. So outrageously insane and brutal that even nations like the Aztecs were like unprepared for it. And we get to be alive right at the moment where the empire kind of apexes. It is a fascinating moment that the ideology of capitalism has crystallized itself for a fractional moment and has taken over the continent for a moment. And it's just in this one moment where we're all together, it just goes boom, and here it is. And now we watch it decline. Because it can't sustain itself because it's not a system designed to be sustained. Empires are difficult to sustain in the first place. They don't persist through time because they're not really valuable to humans. They're the kind of thing that like a little kid thinks is important to do. And that's why it's always perpetuated forward by like singular figures. But it is like a little boy's game. And once they're kind of in place, they immediately start to decay and fall apart because they're not valuable. They don't actually achieve anything. They're not actually for anything. Like an empire really exists only for the entertainment and narcissism of the people who put it in place. They don't really exist for any reason other than that. They don't bring peace. They don't bring prosperity. And so there's something really special about this moment that we all have together, where it would be nice to live in a society that's experiencing the opposite. That's why I find China to be so fascinating, because China in many ways is the opposite. China is on an ascension. China is going in a different direction and has all indications that it's going to continue in this trajectory of growth and change and shifting. Like, the future of humanity is 100% Chinese. Like, that's definitely true. And we're right in this moment where China is superseding our capabilities. Like our industrial capabilities, our creative capabilities, our ability to imagine things and manifest them in the world and produce them at scale. China is just basically right now tipping over and beginning to become the tip of the spear as we carve our way into the future. And it's just happening essentially right at this exact moment. And while that's happening, because the vision of the future was always laid by the West. But it was the West that was pushing us into the future. What's the next thing? What's the new idea? But now the new ideas that are coming out of the West are stupid. They're just very dim-witted and dumb and being very poorly implemented. And being implemented with a dumb religious ideology of this profit motive that doesn't actually develop anything or innovate. And over again, I think one of my favorite things that I've seen happen repeatedly is these AI guys keep trying to find ways to make their system profitable. And the Chinese just keep releasing free models. They just keep undercutting the idea that we're going to be able to gatekeep this. Because that's the only way that you could have made AI profitable, is to force everybody to implement and use AI and then begin gatekeeping it. It's the only way that you could have made it profitable. But the Chinese were basically just like, oh yeah, that AI model, here it is. Free open source. Anybody can use it. And the Chinese are also like, instead of using like a free market solution, how do we lay off our entire workforce and use AI? The Chinese are actually like, okay, what is AI good at? How can we implement it in order to actually increase productivity? We're actually going to pass a law. This happened in China where they're passing a law, they passed a law rather, where you cannot lay someone off from a job based on AI. You can't just say, AI is doing the job, I'm laying you off. Because the Marxists there and the Chinese economists there understand that, like, no, if you increase your productivity, you actually grow your company. Laying people off because of AI is a stupid thing to do. It's dumb. It's going to cost you money, which is exactly what's happening in the West, by the way. They're implementing AI and then laying off their workforce, and then suddenly they have to spend a whole lot more on AI. It's just like, yeah, you dumbasses. It's not reliable for the thing you want to do. The fatal flaw of AI is that it's incapable of having a vision. Like, you can never turn your operations over to AI. You can never do it. Because AI exists in the past. And it always will. It can't imagine the future. It has no vision. It is, by its very definition and design, a collection of the past. And so if you attempt to implement it at scale to be your visionary, then it will always be stuck in the past. AI will be definitionally a hyper-traditionalist and a hyper-conservative because it can't be anything else. And I think the Chinese have grabbed onto this. I think that they know that they've looked at AI and been like, okay, interesting idea, interesting program. First time commenter over on Twitch. Mr. Sauerkraut. Love the name. They write, I had a teacher from China speak to me truthfully back in 2002. Goodness. I asked pointed questions and he told me the truth. 25 years later, his answers were correct. Yeah. Like, to me, I think the thing people will look back on, the big struggle that happened, or that has happened, is happening. It's all of those things. It has happened, it is happening, and it will continue to happen. Is really, we are seeing a struggle between two competing economic theories. And those competing economic theories is the theory of neoliberal economics, the theory that the center of economics is finance, right? That the profit motive is the most important thing, the dollar is the most important thing, versus the economic theory of China, which is rooted in the traditions of Marxist-Leninism, and observe economics as primarily control of the means of production. A materialist worldview. That finance creates a pseudo-economy that exists on top of the real economy, while the material worldview says, hey, we should take a look at things as they are. And so it's hardly surprising that the Chinese have been routinely better at predicting what the outcome of the future is going to be. You could take a look at Deng Xiaoping. I think Deng Xiaoping is the perfect person to pay attention to. Deng Xiaoping made 4 predictions in his first speech when he became the leader of China, and they all came perfectly true. Mr. Sauerkraut continues, the impatience of the West versus the patience of China is also a significant difference. Absolutely. Yeah, China does this thing that the West actually ridicules called planning, right? That the National People's Congress, the Chinese government, sits down and actually says, hey, we should make a 5-year plan. And we should frame that 5-year plan within a 100-year plan. And every 5 years we should get back together and be like, how's the plan going? And adjust the plan if we need to adjust it. You compare that to the capitalist system, where the capitalist system is literally let the free market decide. So it's just chaos. It's literally don't make a plan. In fact, making a plan is bad. The only thing you need to pay attention to is number go up. As long as number go up, you do good. And that's turning out to be a real boondoggle. That's turning out to be a real stupid way of doing things. And the biggest stupidity of it is that you're basically forcing multiple different organizations to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So instead of taking the collective resources and the collective energy and coming up with a collective plan and working together and adjusting the plan and working on the plan as you move forward through time, instead you're having 3 or 4 or 5 organizations compete with one another, undercut one another, creating corporate espionage systems, and spending 5 times the amount of resources in order to get half the outcome. Because they're all trying to tear each other down and defeat one another. While alternative models, the Chinese model, is like, yeah, we're just going to do it. We're just going to build the thing. We're going to look at the problem. We're going to research a solution to the problem. And then we're going to implement the solution to the problem. And it's turning out to be just a superior way of organizing your society. Ugh. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Andrew writes, what is stable is easy to maintain. What has not yet manifested is easy to plan for. What is fragile is easily broken. What is small is easily scattered. Act before something happens. Bring order before chaos sets in. Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 64. You have a plan, right? Like, have a plan. And when it comes to AI, it looks like the Chinese, are just being more honest about AI. That they're looking at it and being like, okay, AI, what is it good at? It's good at like computation, right? Take a look at this information, crunch these numbers, spit out a thing. Like, observe this scattershot picture, like a medical picture of a human body, find all the cancer cells. And it's turning out that AI is actually pretty good at that, right? And so this is where your increase in productivity comes from. That it's really good at taking tasks that would take a human a long time to do and doing it a lot faster. So it's increasing your productivity. But if you tried to lay off your doctors because of this, it would be a disaster, because AI is very weak at actually like organizing anything. You need human oversight, mainly because AI constantly makes mistakes, which we've seen over and over again now. It's become like a meme. It's become something that people basically make fun of. Yeah, this idea, which is 2,500 years old. Yeah, the idea of planning, having a plan. Who knew? Who knew that having a plan would beat not having a plan? And so the thing that's going to be really beautiful to watch, because you guys know me, I try to leave in a message of hope, right? And it is going to be beautiful to watch that, yes, the West is in decline. And the West is going to keep acting the way it's acting. It's not going to stop, right? It's going to have this kind of schizophrenia. It's going to have this kind of bipolar disorder where people will try to take over the system in order to implement change. And you'll have periods of general statesmanly seeming stability, like the Obama years, right? Where things seem to be in hand. And then you'll have years like Trump, where it's just complete destabilization, and it'll just keep happening over and over again. And it'll happen, like, you imagine the perception of the West from somebody like Putin or Xi Jinping, right? Like, Xi Jinping has been like a governor of China for decades. He's been involved in the political system for his whole life, right? And he's been the president of China for decades. And so his perception of America is like very schizophrenic. Like, they're here, then they're there, then they're here, then they're there, and they're just boom, 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 boom. They build this, they tear it down, they replace it with something else, they tear it down. And it's just this constant, like, turmoil, churning, like, vat of boiling liquid that's just, like, constantly patting itself on the back, blowing everything up, enslaving everything around it, extracting wealth, spreading misery wherever it goes, and then every so often goes, okay, hold on, wait a minute, we gotta actually try to, like, do some stuff to actually try to, and then they do some things, and most of it fails because they don't actually plan anything, and it just kind of, like, keeps churning and being like that. Meanwhile, the Chinese and the Russians are just like, okay, A, then B, then C, and like every so often they'll be like, okay, C, and then E. Oh wait, okay, we did E, but it was actually D. So D, E, right? And they'll have that kind of thing. And like things will happen in China, which the West will be like, it's the end of the Chinese economy. They're speculative. Their housing prices have dropped. And meanwhile, the Chinese are like, yeah, our housing prices dropped. We dropped them on purpose. We literally said out loud that housing is for living in, not for speculation. And it crashed the speculative market, which we're fine with. Why do we need to continue investing in housing when we've built all this housing? We have like hundreds of thousands of empty units because we built it all in advance because we were worried about a population boom. So why do we need to keep building these? And like, what's with the speculative markets? That's a weird idea. And so we get to watch the West decline due to its own hubris and stupidity, while we watch China ascend. And I think the thing that's going to be really interesting to see, like, I think that this AI moment is the last gasp of Western vision for the world. That AI really was like the last stab of the West being at the helm of humanity. That America being at the helm of humanity, charting forward a vision for the future. And I think AI was pretty much the end of it. And when that bubble pops, and it's going to pop, and it's going to be horrible, and everybody will lose their jobs, just like everything else. And it's like, oh God, how do I feed my children? Well, good luck. You should work harder. You should have seen it coming. Ha ha ha. You're holding the bag, right? That Kevin O'Leary grift, right? Where they sell you a product they know is going to blow up, and oh, so you're the bag holder, okay? And then we all bail them out, right? Like the 2008 financial collapse. So as they're running that grift on us, as the AI bubble pops, and as the West sinks into its depression and sinks into its, as it discredits itself, I mean, it's already discredited itself, but as it really sinks in, that it's no longer capable of having a vision for the future, China is going to step into that role. It's not going to seek to step into that role. That's one of the other things that I really love about China, and I've always loved about China, is that they don't really want to be the leaders of the world. Like, they don't want that. They don't want to have, like, a central dollar. They don't want to be the reserve currency. They don't want any of that, right? Because they really are of that opinion, where it's like, no, we're China. Like, we're good. Like, what you guys are doing is what you're doing, and we'll interact with you. We'll trade with you. And like we'll interact with your systems, but when you start turning to us being like, you are the leader of the world, we're like, no thank you, because that means that we have to take responsible for your bullshit, and we don't want to. Like, I think that that's really wise of China. I think that China just being like, nah, we have enough problems to deal with here in China. We don't want your problems. Your problems are your problems. You deal with your problems. We'll deal with our problems. Live long and prosper. And there's a moment coming, though, because of just the force of what China has become. There is a moment coming where China is going to begin doing things that exist outside the imagination of Westerners. And that's going to be an extremely scary moment for the West. There's going to be so much fear-mongering. There's going to be so much... Like, it'll be like a McCarthy Red Scare terrorist drive, basically. That comes out of not just the Republican Party, but also the Democratic Party. Like the entire propaganda system is going to look at what China begins to move forward on, and they're going to communicate it to us as a threat. And I can't really give a good example of what that's going to be because it's going to exist outside of my imagination too. That the next tier of technology and the next step into the future of humanity is going to be bizarre. And it's going to be like, we're talking about stuff like interdimensional travel, teleportation. Like we're talking about like superseding the speed of light. Like these sort like quantum mechanics and quantum travel and quantum power and like the new tier. Like the next Einstein comes out of China. Like they're not coming out of the West. The next leader, the next breakthrough in physics or the next breakthroughs in mathematics comes out of China. And I just don't think that you can debate it. Like we're not intelligent in the West. We don't believe in intelligence. If Einstein the second was to appear in the West, we would roundly ignore him. Because it's not profitable. Like, who cares about your new theory of this, that, or the other thing? What's it matter, right? Does it make me $100 billion? Then I don't care. Like, if Einstein was alive in today's climate, he would be on a phone calling people to get donations. He wouldn't be doing mathematics. He wouldn't be doing physics. Right, he wouldn't be at symposiums and doing actual science. He'd be a fundraiser. He'd be on the phone calling people, trying to get money for the university. That's what these guys would be doing, because that's what the whole system has become. Meanwhile, the Chinese are like, "Hey, there's a thread here. We should grab the end of that thread and we should pull that thread, and we should have hundreds of thousands of people dedicated to doing that through our university systems." So the next big breakthrough in our understanding of physics and science, which looks to be like quantum computing and like quantum mechanics, is 100% coming out of China. And when they make those breakthroughs, which I mean, I'm of the belief that they've already done a lot of that. Like, there's already a lot of that shit happening. It's just not communicated to us, right? Because we don't have a system of communication. We have a system of indoctrination and propaganda. And so when they begin implementing some of this stuff, when the theory becomes material, when they begin doing shit that exists way outside of our imagination, we're going to have no fucking idea how to handle that. We're not going to know what to do about it. And by the time we get our act together and actually begin, like, doing the thing that they are doing in order to step into the future with them, we're going to be so far behind. We're just going to be so far fucking behind them that it's not even going to matter. And, like, I think the big shift, like the real shift that's going to happen, is a moon base. The Chinese have a plan for a moon base, and they're building a moon base. And when they've got, like, a fully operational moon base, we're just going to be like, about it. Like, we're not going to be nice about it. We'll probably have we'll make James Bond movies where we send James Bond up to the evil Chinese dictator's moon base and destroy the moon base, while we send CIA agents up there to try to destroy their moon base. Like, it's going to be really dumb. And it's the disparity between the two, right? It's the disparity between the hard material analysis of Marxist-Leninism versus this religious ideology that we insist is an economic system. And it's just going to get really obvious. Like there's a moment coming in my life where most people in the West will finally just be confronted with the hard reality that we have fallen behind. And that we have fallen. And it's just going to be so clear. And the reason why I can't really articulate what it's going to look like is because it's going to be outside of our imagination. We've limited ourselves with capitalism. We've limited ourselves with this religious ideology. Like, you're going to see fully autonomous robots doing everything across China in our lifetimes. There's a big conversation coming out of China, in fact, where people are beginning to really say, why did we ever make robots to look like humans? Like, that's actually extremely inefficient. It's not very valuable. Like, why are we making a human robot at all? And that most of the time, the robot you want to build looks kind of like R2-D2. Like, that's probably your most efficient robot. Just like a trash can with wheels, basically. And like an appendage that can like put out and grab stuff. And so you're seeing like a shift or a reform throughout China where people are beginning to say like, yeah, like this creating a human robot idea was like an interesting novelty. It was something that we all kind of got captured with imaginatively, but practically it's not useful. Like, why does it need to have legs? It doesn't make sense that we build it this way. And like all of the things that we sort of imagined robotics and AI would do will fail here in the West because we don't actually believe in planning and creating systems to support the idea. Not to mention like the power consumption of it all. Like data centers is a great example. I actually think this is a great example. One of the greatest examples of the major difference. Like, China went, oh, okay, what's one of the big problems that data centers have? They overheat. They produce a lot of heat. They also require a lot of power. Oh, okay. So, where should we put our data centers? Well, probably not in the middle of a desert, away from any kind of cooling systems, and away from any kind of power grid. You know, which was Kevin O'Leary's plan in Utah. To put a data center in the fucking middle of a desert, like a dumbass. And so the Chinese went, oh, okay, those are the problems, so let's put the data center in the ocean. And let's power it with like tidal ocean waves and wind energy and solar energy. Let's get this off the fossil fuel grid entirely. And oh, it uses a lot of water? Great. The ocean is water, like that's what it is. And so we've got a natural cooling mechanism, we've got a natural power system, we've built it in the ocean. Bob's your uncle, Sally's your aunt. Off we go. Meanwhile, we're like tearing down forests, building data centers in the middle of deserts. And a lot of this data center stuff in the West is not practical. It literally is just wealth extraction again. That's all it is. It's just wealth extraction again. It's just, oh, we convinced a bunch of investors and politicians to give us a lot of money if we put some shit in the middle of a forest. And and if it fails, we get bailed out anyway, so it doesn't matter. So it's just another wealth extraction. Literally, politicians tax you so they can give that money to these jagoffs, and the jagoffs are like, oh, okay, we'll build this. Is it useful? I don't care. I'm not competing on an open free market. I'm completely bailed out by taxpayers 100% of the time. So I don't give a shit if this works. And so guess what? It doesn't work. And just the overwhelming corruption of our system, the overwhelming, and like, it'll be confronting the religious mind of humans, I think, and really understanding that, like, humans are vulnerable to their own religious minds, to their own non-rational selves. That I think the biggest mistake that the West ever made in terms of its own development was it stopped funding the arts and started demonizing those who pursued the arts, and it stopped pursuing humanities, and it stopped meaningfully investigating itself. Because humans are extremely vulnerable to delusions of grandeur, to denial, and we fall prey to religious mindsets because we produce religion, we create religion inherently and naturally. And if we don't actively, knowingly, and willfully pursue religious ideas and religious thought, then we do so passively. And when it's done with purpose and intelligence and wisdom, we can understand that the thing that we are talking about, yeah, this isn't real. Like, magic's not real, kids. But we're talking about something here. We're having a conversation about the human condition. We're having a conversation about what it is to be a person. We're telling these stories to one another in order to get to a goal, to a point, so that we can have a wider discussion about what it is to be like a mortal, like what it is to be like a life that spawns in, grows, plateaus, decays, and dies. Like, what is it to be that? And what is it to be within a collective body that is doing that all at once, within a system that is collectively also doing that all at once? And what do we call such a system? Does such a system have an intelligence? How do we discuss these things? And instead of grabbing hold of it and purposefully, with intention, making something sacred, we pretend as though nothing is sacred and then inherently make something sacred. In the case of Western civilization, money is sacred. That's what we have sanctified. That money as an idea, as a concept, has been totally sanctified. You cannot argue with money. You whatever money wants to do, then that's what the money does. And if money comes and destroys your country and destroys your civilization, then
all hail money. And it must have been for the greater good. The invisible hand, right? And that to me is going to be the biggest reckoning for humanity. And what I worry about with the Chinese. That humans fall prey or are vulnerable to their religious impulses, and no one is more vulnerable to their religious impulses than those who believe they don't have them. When the West went through like a big atheist moment, right? The big agnostic atheist moment, which is fine because I perceive that to be a response to the Christian fascists, who are just heretical losers. But it leaves this vacuum. It leaves this gap of desanctification. Like, what do you think is sacred? What is sacred? I would argue that water and food and air are sacred. I would argue that poisoning the water, poisoning the land, poisoning the air should be considered like theological crimes. That we should actually consider that to be some of the highest crimes that you can commit, because you are destroying not just human life, but also the concept of life. And we're not really having serious conversations about the sacred, because to have conversations about the sacred means to find humility. Like, one of the funniest things that I think humans say is, I don't want to be dependent on the government. To which I say, okay, well then what do you want to be dependent on? Because you're dependent on something. And when you start pointing that out to your libertarian free market capitalists, they just don't even know what to say to it. Because they are in this religious belief where if they're not dependent on the government, well then they'll be a rugged individualist, and the only thing they'll need to depend on is themselves, because that's what they've made sacred. That they've made themselves sacred. They hold themselves above the air and the water and the land. And they measure their sacredness through money in a chaotic system. And that's what I struggle with, you know, in my day-to-day life and in my lived experience as I'm going through my own journey. I want to honor my creator. The forces that created me, if you prefer. If you don't want to put an intelligence to it. I want to honor that which is responsible for sustaining me. I want to honor that which I truly depend on, which is the air and the land and the water. And we live in a structure, a human structure, that is designed to destroy those things. It's designed to destroy the land and to destroy the air and to destroy the water. And to do so to worship a false god, which is money, in a pursuit of the greatness of the self. Like, no Westerner gets to talk about a cult of personality while Elon Musk is walking around. And I struggle with this. This is reminding me of a quote from the Bible. My dad will be proud of me. A man cannot serve both God and money. But I need money to live in this system. I need food. I need shelter. The rent is due on the 1st of the month. And engaging with the system of capital does harm. And so what am I to do? And even more annoyingly is that even those who are sympathetic to my position, their solutions are typically just buck up, do your best within the system, because it's a hyper-individualist system. It's a system of hyper-individualism. There is no institutional power that's designed to protect the water and the air. And such systems, such as they theoretically exist, have been gutted and dismantled. And things have just been made complicated. Like, what people want is not complex. It's not difficult. It's not like people want to do meaningful work, eat, sleep, fuck, and share themselves with those around them. That's what people want. Simple. And why isn't it being delivered? Because a small group of people don't profit from that. And that's it. And to convince you that that's the normal, natural way of things, they need to make systems that are complex or seem complex. And so they make things difficult to understand and comprehend on purpose. The prevailing strategy of the day is to flood the zone. Just lie as much as possible, gish galop, say as much bullshit as you possibly can, and force people to respond to all your trash. And really, I'm at a point now where I'm just willing to say we need to stop talking to these guys. And we need to start defending ourselves from them. They've made it very clear what their strategy is and what their goal is through their actions. And for some reason, we think we're going to reason our way out of it. It's a death cult. There's no reason. And as we go through time, it's going to get more and more obvious. It's just going to get clearer and clearer and clearer. Well, that's the end of this one. As my mom has always said, if you can have a good time having a bad time, you're going to be okay. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.